All right, thanks for tuning in. My name is TJ Walker. I work for the North Mississippi Get to College Center, which is a program of the Woodward Hines Education Foundation. I've joined forces with Project Impact Mississippi to give you guys some information about financial aid. And so throughout this presentation, I will be covering outside financial aid, which is money that comes from outside sources. I will be covering college financial aid, and this is the money that will be coming from the colleges and the institutions that you've applied to. I'll also be covering federal financial aid, which is money that comes from completing the FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. And I will also be covering Mississippi financial aid from the Mississippi Office of Student Financial Aid. After today, if you need more resources, you can go to our website, which is gettocollege.org. We have tons of resources. The easiest way to find these resources would be to click on this Students and Families tab, and I am hovering my mouse over that tab right now. So if you go to our website, click on Students and Families, and you can find a large majority of our resources right there on our website. One thing to note before we start talking about the financial options you have to pay for college, I just want to remind students and parents that students have options. And the one thing that a student can control when it comes to their financial obligation with the college is the school that they choose to go to. Colleges come with different prices. 2-year schools may be a little bit less expensive than some of our 4-year schools. Private colleges may be a little bit more expensive than some of our other institutions. And so the only thing truly that a student can control and has the power to control is the school that they choose. And so you'll see here visually that in the state of Mississippi, students have a lot of options, but of course there are also schools outside of the state of Mississippi that students can apply to. But within the state of Mississippi, students do have lots of options, whether that's going to a private college, attending a public 4-year institution, or going to a community college. When you're thinking about the cost, when you're thinking about the finances as it relates to the college or career choice, cost of attendance is a very important term that students and parents need to understand. Every college on their website has what's called a net price calculator, and you'll see visually on the screen the words net price calculator. And what this will do for you is give you an idea of what kind of financial situation the student would be in at whatever college they decide to go to. The easiest way to find a net price calculator will be to go to Google, type in the name of the college or institution. Right after you type in those words, put the words net price calculator. So for example, you could put in Jackson State University net price calculator, Northwest Community College net price calculator. Once you get to these websites, the net price calculator form usually allows you to put in the student's ACT score. It may allow you to put in the student's GPA. It will also typically ask some of the same questions or the same financial questions that would be on the FAFSA, the Federal Application for Financial Aid. And based on all this information that you put into the net price calculator, that institution will give you what I would call a mock award letter. So it gives you an idea of what kind of financial situation the student would be in. It will show you the cost of that college. It would also show you, based on the information you put in, what scholarships the student would qualify for and what financial aid opportunities that student would have at that institution. So to give you an idea of what the numbers are, typically when I'm having conversations with students and parents, you hear things like college is really expensive, or this school doesn't cost that much. You hear the words tuition, you hear room and board, you hear cost of attendance. And a lot of times these terms can be misunderstood. Sometimes these terms can be misleading. And being a former college recruiter, sometimes the college recruiters may not give you the full picture of what stuff will cost at these colleges. So I want to just pause and give you guys an opportunity to at least have a better understanding of what everything means. So cost of attendance, you may see the letters COA on the website. Cost of attendance includes everything. That's going to be the combination of your tuition, your dorm, your meal plan, other fees, technology fees. Cost of attendance is typically the sum total of everything that you would have to pay at that college. So if you're looking at community colleges in Mississippi, so I'm referring to this left side of the screen here. If you're looking at community colleges, if you pay attention to that brown bag, you will see the number 11,700. That is the average cost of attendance for a community college in the state of Mississippi. Right below the bag, you'll see in green, 2,600 to 3,750. That is the annual tuition for these community colleges in Mississippi. So if you talk to a recruiter today, if you talk to a recruiter in the near future, and they tell you, oh, it costs about $3,000 to go to our school, if they give you the number 3,000, more than likely they're only referring to tuition. But if your student is going to that college, they're not only paying for tuition, they're paying for room and board, they're paying for other fees. So it is very important to understand what the total cost of attendance is, to understand the full picture. So if you look on the right side, I think you can easily see visually that public universities in the state of Mississippi are about double. So in the brown bag on the right side, you see the number 22,500. So that is the average cost of attendance for four-year public institutions in Mississippi. So when I say four-year public, I'm referring to Mississippi State, University of Mississippi, Jackson State, Alcorn University, Mississippi University for Women, Delta State University, Mississippi Valley. So the 8 public universities in the state of Mississippi, their average annual cost of attendance is around 22,000, sorry, excuse me. If you're just looking at tuition though, that tuition number is around 6,700 to 8,800. So again, if you're talking to someone, if you're talking to a recruiter and they're only giving you the tuition number, I would challenge you to challenge them to give you the full cost of attendance, because that's what you're typically going to have to pay when a student goes to that college. So I have an example for you. So if you look at the screen here, there's a lot of big numbers, there's a lot of lines, and if you're going to a school's website or if you're looking in a brochure that a college gave you, these numbers can be really, really confusing. So, you know, if I didn't understand this stuff and I hadn't been in the field for as long as I have been, the first things I would notice would be, I see a 17,933, I see 24, that's big. I see 15,776. What does all this stuff mean? And so to help you better understand what all this stuff means, I put these arrows on the page. So if you look and zoom in on that yellow arrow, you see the number 24,371. So that is the average total cost of attendance for this institution. I will give you a side note. These numbers came from an institution, a four-year institution in the state of Mississippi that I will not name because that's not important at this moment. So for this school, 24,371, that is the cost of attendance for 1 year at this four-year school. So if you think about that, it costs $24K for 1 year. It's a four-year school. So that means your student, or a student, if you're listening to this, you're responsible for 24,000 4 times, okay? So the cost of attendance includes, if you look at the top, you see tuition and fees. Right below that, you see room and board. Those total costs will give you that 17,933. Look on below that, books and supplies and other fees for a total cost of 24,371. Keep going to the middle of the page, you'll see Freshman Academic Excellence Scholarship and the Covert Future Leader Scholarship. So these are academic scholarships that student qualified for. The numbers I put into this net price calculator was that the student had, I want to say, a 24 to 26 ACT and a 4.0 GPA. So this student was had great credentials, great ACT score, great GPA, and they actually qualified for 2 really nice scholarships for a total of $2,500. Right below that, you see other gift aid. So based on the parents' income that I put in, the created income that I put in, this student qualified for a Pell Grant. Pell Grant at the time that I did this was right at $6,000. So if you pay attention to the green arrow, you will see that this student in the bank, or in their college bank, as I'll say, they have $85.95. So if a student got an award letter from this school and the school said that we're giving you $8,500 to pay for school, that actually sounds really good in theory. But the $8,500 up against the 24,371 leaves you with a balance of 15,776. So The question I would ask any student or any parent at this point will be, well, how do you pay the $15,776? The student already has been given scholarships, 2 great scholarships for their academic credentials. They've already been awarded federal financial aid from the Pell Grant. So how do you knock down this $15,776? The usual response that I get from this is, well, we'll take out student loans. Well, the maximum student loan that a student can take out as a freshman in college is $5,500. And so you would knock off $5,500 from this $15,776, and the student still owes about $10,000. So at that point, where do you get the $10,000 to pay the rest of that balance? Now, I know these numbers sound ridiculous. I know these numbers are really high. It seems unfair. College should not be that expensive. I would totally agree with you on that. But this is the nature of the business as it is right now, and there's nothing we can really change about that right now. So parent, student, whoever's listening to this, if your student is considering a 4-year school, and these numbers are based on schools in Mississippi, this is the truth. This is how it is. And I want you guys to be aware of these numbers, because this is the reality. Most students and parents that I work with in my office that get to college, they fail to really pay attention to the numbers. The students are so focused on going to the school because it's socially fun, or the school has a really good football team, and they wait to the last minute to really think about the cost, or they ignore the cost the entire time, hoping and wishing that it all works out. And then when they move into college in that first August of their freshman year and they get that bill in October, then they're in a bind and they can't financially afford to pay their bill. And then they're stuck. So students and parents, if you go to a college, so if in this scenario, if you went to this school and you get this bill for $15,776 and you have no plan to pay for it, you don't have any other way to pay for it, and you can't pay that bill, that student is going to be stuck. They can't pay their bill. So that means they can't apply for classes for the next semester. Let's say, well, I'll just drop out of school and I'll go to another college. Well, if you try to go to another college, they're going to require a transcript from the school that you just left. The school that you just left is not going to release your transcript if you still have a bill to pay with them. So it's really, really important, folks, that you guys understand what these financial obligations are going to be. I don't say this to scare you guys, but I do want y'all to understand that it's expensive. There are ways to knock these costs down, and that's what I'm going to actually transition into now, so you all will have a better understanding of what your financial options are. So let's get into it. Hopefully those numbers didn't scare you, but in a way I do hope they scared you, because that's the reality. But there is some hope, and hopefully I'm going to give you guys some of that hope with a little bit of more information and understanding. All right, so here we go. The first category, outside aid. As I mentioned earlier, outside aid, you would consider this as outside scholarships, private scholarships. This is money that's coming from sources not directly connected to a college. So the first place that I would encourage any student or any parent to search for outside scholarships will be with the counselor. Go to the school's website. I understand that there's a pandemic going on right now with COVID-19. So communications with your high schools and with your counselors may be limited at this moment. But there are a lot of virtual options now available to students and parents. Check your Facebook pages, your school's Facebook pages, email your counselor. If you have the phone number, it may be a good idea to even give them a phone call. Check out online databases. And so if you see at the very bottom of this page, there's fastweb.com, there's bigfuture.org. There's also Scholarly, which is an app. You can go to these websites and they have databases there where you can sift through a bunch of scholarship. Check locally. I always tell students, if you're looking for extra money from outside sources, look locally. Think about your local businesses, your banks, your churches, civic groups, fraternities, sororities. These local entities typically have funds to give away, and in most cases, they're struggling to get students to actually apply for their scholarships. So I'm going to highly encourage you to look locally. Also, think about your newspaper. A lot of people have shifted away from old school newspaper, but if your town still uses a newspaper, it may be a good idea to check with them. Also, speaking of community organizations, so the organization that is actually hosting this financial aid presentation, I want to shed some light on them. Great organization. So Project Impact Mississippi. So it's a nonprofit community organization. They have resources for Mississippi seniors attending college in Mississippi. They have multiple scholarships, $1,000 or more. Simple, easy applications, no essay, and the deadline for all their scholarships is April the 11th of 2020. So I have a blurb for you. Project Impact Mississippi is a unique platform that offers a one-stop shop for Mississippi seniors planning to attend college in Mississippi. Students have the opportunity to apply for multiple scholarships using a single and easy application process. There is no essay requirement. Instead, students are asked to submit a 2 to 4 minute video discussing the topic for each scholarship. Again, scholarships close April 11th, 2020, and they can find out more information, or you can find out more information on the website projectimpactmississippims.org. So just in case you are searching the interwebs or the internet and you're trying to figure out what the site looks like, you want to make sure you're on the right page. Here's a snapshot of what their website looks like when you go to the home page. So again, it's Project Impact Mississippi. Okay, so let's move on. College aid, so the money that comes from the actual institutions. So whenever your student applies to a college, that college typically has some funds available. Merit-based scholarships, as you see there at the top in bold, are going to be based on the student's ACT and GPA. But then there's leadership scholarships based on student being involved, being a leader in their school, student council, beta club. You have sports, arts, music. So auxiliary groups like dance, theater, cheer, choir. These organizations, you can get involved, you can audition for scholarships. And typically, if you have an academic scholarship and you have a leadership scholarship and you're part of the choir, you may be able to stack all those scholarships for a really nice scholarship package. The very important thing to note, your ACT score and GPA are very, very important and play a major role in you getting those academic scholarships. It is also important to understand that your ACT score and GPA hold different weight at different colleges. What do you mean by that, TJ? So let's say I have a 23 ACT. I'm considering, because I live in North Mississippi, I'm considering Northwest Mississippi Community College and the University of Mississippi. I have a 23 ACT. I'm trying to decide which one is the better choice for me financially in terms of scholarships. Well, if I take my 23 ACT to the University of Mississippi, in terms of their academic scholarships, I may not qualify based on the scholarship standards on their website. But if I take my 23 to Northwest Community College, based on their scholarship standards, I would get 2 years full tuition at this school, and the tuition is $3,000 a year. So in that first 2 years, my freshman year and my sophomore year of college, I'm going tuition free if I choose Northwest Community College. If I chose to go to the University of Mississippi, based on the current status of my ACT score, I would be getting 0 academic scholarships. So I would be, number one, taking on a bigger bill because the 4-year schools are more expensive. And then number two, I'm getting 0 academic scholarships based on the scholarship standards. So again, financially, that community college option is a better one in that scenario. Speaking of community colleges, I want to shed light on a very important organization. That's Phi Theta Kappa. You'll see that on this screen in blue, but I'll tell you more about it here. So Phi Theta Kappa is a international honor society. So students who do attend a community college can get involved in PTK. We call it PTK for short. So while you're at that community college, if you have a 3.5 GPA, you actually get invited to join PTK. Your involvement in PTK allows you to transfer to a 4-year school, and you can qualify for transfer scholarships to pay for your junior and your senior year of college. So we'll kind of reverse back to the scenario I just gave you about me having a 23 ACT. So let's say I did decide to go to Northwest. I have that 23, I'm gonna get those 2 free years full tuition. Now I decide I wanna go ahead and transfer to the University of Mississippi because that was the dream school at the time. Freshman year and sophomore year are knocked out, tuition free. I joined Phi Theta Kappa when I was at Northwest Community College. Now I'm transferring to the University of Mississippi because I'm in PTK. University of Mississippi is actually going to give me 2 years of an academic scholarship for my involvement. In the end, in 4 years, student graduates from the University of Mississippi, whether they started at Northwest or if they started directly at the University of Mississippi, same end result in 4 years. So financially, guys, as I stated way earlier, if you look at the raw numbers from the beginning, it can be very scary. But if you look at some non-traditional routes or some non-traditional options, there are some other financial pathways that you can take or students can take to knock down those finances. Moving on to the third category, federal financial aid. All right, so federal financial aid is the FAFSA. And the FAFSA, the letters FAFSA stand for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. The website is FAFSA.gov. Students will complete this application or start completing this application October 1st of their senior year. You'll see that date in the middle of the screen. Every October that the students in college, they will have to renew their FAFSA. The FAFSA is going to take into account the parents' income, students' income if they work, the number of people in the household, and the number of people in that household who will be in college at the same time. We have lots of questions about whose information to use on the FAFSA. And so just for clarity and understanding, I'll actually throw out a few scenarios just to help dispel some of the myths that we hear at the Get to College Center with people when it comes to completing the FAFSA. So if a student lives with their mother, but the father, so mom and dad are divorced. I'll give you the scenario. Mom and dad are divorced. Biological mom and dad are divorced. Student physically lives with the mother, but the dad claimed the student on the taxes. Whose tax information would I use in this scenario? It's going to be the mom's. It does not matter who claims the student on the tax return. It's about who the student physically lives with. Then someone could say, well, the student lives with both parents equally. 1 week they're with mom, the next week they're with dad, and vice versa, back and forth. So in that scenario, you would use the parent's information who provides the most financial support. There's a lot of questions that can come from whose tax information to use on the FAFSA. So I won't go into all those scenarios, but I will give you guys my email address at the end, and I'll do it now just in case. My email address is tjwalker, so TJWALKER at get2college.org, and that's GET, the number 2, college.org. If you have a financial aid question or if you have a whose tax information question, please email me, or you can call my office at 662-349-2789. I would love to talk to you about those scenarios and help you better navigate this process. We'll move on. Another important thing to note with whose tax information to use on the FAFSA is to know if the student is dependent or independent. So simply put, a student is dependent if they live with both of their parents or one parent. You can only be considered independent for FAFSA purposes in very special situations. I'm going to share those situations with you. So if a student can say yes to either of these scenarios, they're going to be considered independent on the FAFSA. Independent meaning they don't have to use anyone else's tax information but themselves. So let's say the student is in high school, but they're independent based on one of these factors, but they don't work. Exactly. So whose tax information do I use? That student. They don't work, so their tax info is all zeros. It's pretty simple. So these are the ways that a student can be considered independent. If a student is 24, if they're currently in graduate school or enrolling in graduate school, if the student is married, if they're serving active duty in the armed forces or a veteran. Just a side note, when it comes to military, if the student is in ROTC, that is not going to be considered active duty for FAFSA purposes. If the student has a child or is pregnant and will have a child before they start college, if both of the parents are deceased, since the student turned 13, if the student's been in foster care since 13, a dependent or ward of the court since 13, if they've been emancipated, they've gone to court and they've gotten emancipated from their family, if they're in a legal guardianship and that appointment has come from the court. I just want to shed a little bit more light on guardianship. The word guardianship is really important. If your guardian or the person who has custody and their paperwork says the word custody and not guardianship, that is not the same, and the schools will not treat it the same. I know it doesn't sound fair, But that's one of those policies and rules that's very finite. But so if the papers say guardianship, the student will be considered independent. And if the student's homeless or at risk of being homeless. And so typically anything that a student reports on their FAFSA has to be verified. So you can't go on the FAFSA and just say, oh yeah, well, I'm in one of these scenarios, I'm just gonna say yes. Anything that's reported on the FAFSA has to be verified. The colleges will follow up once you finish the FAFSA. You will have to prove anything that you put on the FAFSA. So you will have to have the necessary paperwork to prove that you're in either of these scenarios if you say yes. All right, few seconds to talk about loans. I always encourage students and parents to avoid loans at all costs, but if you do have to accept loans, I would consider the federal student loans first before I consider private loans from banks. As you'll see on the screen, the student loans, subsidized and unsubsidized, the first two on the left, have a 4.53% interest rate, which is actually fairly low. If you're going to grad school, 6%, 6.1%. And if you are a parent and you want to assist your student and take out the loans on their behalf, you can take out what's called a Parent Plus loan. So on the far right side, the Parent Plus loan interest rate is 7.1%. Again, please avoid loans when you can, because you do have to pay them back with interest. There's lots of ways to cut down the costs. It may require you taking some non-traditional pathways to get to your goal, but if you can avoid them, please do. And there are ways to do that. The last category, Mississippi financial aid. Now, this is money that comes from the state of Mississippi. I will say this, if a student decides to go to college outside of the state of Mississippi, even if that school is on the state line like Tennessee, or if they go to University of South Alabama, which is near the Mississippi Gulf Coast, these Mississippi grants cannot be used at a college outside of Mississippi. The University of Memphis is close to where I live. They offer Mississippi residents in-state tuition, but that is a policy that the University of Memphis has. These Mississippi funds that I'm referring to now here on the screen come from Mississippi, and they can't be taken across state lines. Just want to put that out there. All right, so there are 3 grants from the state of Mississippi. One's called MTAG, there's MESG, and then there's the HELP grant, HELP. MTAG, 15 ACT, 2.5 GPA, $3,000 grant, pretty simple. MESG, 29 ACT, 3.5 GPA, $10,000, $2,500 over the 4-year period. MTAG and MESG, parents, please listen here. MTAG and MESG are not based on the parent income. Typically, when we say the word grant, you think it's all income based. I have seen parents miss out on MTAG and MESG because of the word grant being associated with it. These two are not based on income. So MTAG, 3,000, MESG, 10,000. HELP grant, 20 ACT. If you pay attention to the yellow box here, student has to have a 20 ACT, 2.5 GPA, complete the IHL CPC. So those are basically all the classes they need to graduate, plus an additional advanced elective, and meet the income requirements. If a student meets all these standards, if you look on the left side in the black bold, you'll see that the HELP grant covers tuition and required fees at any public school in Mississippi for 4 years, equivalent to 8 semesters. If they're going to a private college like Tougaloo or Rust or Mississippi College, they will pay whatever the tuition is at the nearest public school. The application deadline for Mississippi financial aid is March 31st. So if you're a senior right now, you have until March 31st of your senior year to get this application done. So for these Mississippi grants, there's one application. So I talked about in number 3, you have to do the FAFSA. The FAFSA is the federal financial aid application. There is also a Mississippi financial aid application. And so students have to do that application by March 31st. Again, if there are a lot of very distinct details for this application. If you have questions about that, again, I'll share my information. So how impactful can the HELP grant be? HELP grant pays whatever the tuition is at any school in Mississippi. So just to show you how impactful it can be, I showed y'all this earlier. And earlier I told you that the student had a balance of $15,776. If we look back up here at the top, tuition and fees, you see the tuition and fees at this school is $83.18. In this scenario, if this student had a 20 ACT or above, they would also, in addition to this academic excellence scholarship, in addition to this covert leader scholarship, in addition to this Pell Grant of $6,095, they will be getting a help grant for the total of $83.18. So just to let you know, help grant pays whatever the tuition number is at the college. So just to go back, help grant to full tuition and fees for 8 years. For 4 years, excuse me, 4 years, 8 semesters. So in this case, you would knock that 15,776 down by 83.18. There's still a balance, but getting an additional $8,000 is actually really, really good. So the help grant can be a game changer for you. Some other things to note about Mississippi financial aid. Students must enroll in at least 15 credit hours, so that's 5 classes. You have to be enrolled in 15 hours, take those 5 classes, and you have to pass those classes. So if a student fails a class, they run the risk of losing their Mississippi financial aid. Okay, so in review, we talked about 4 types of financial aid. The first category, outside scholarships. So students and parents, look locally first. Think about your local organizations, churches, fraternities, sororities. Think about the great organizations like Project Impact Mississippi, who have tons of scholarships. I saw on the website over $30,000 in scholarships awarded in the past. You definitely want to take advantage of these opportunities. I've also talked to some of the members of Project Impact Mississippi, and there are students who are actually just not taking advantage of this opportunity from the organization that I work for, and some of my personal organizations that I'm affiliated with. We give out thousands of dollars, and in years past, we've struggled to get students to apply. People are literally begging students to take their money. So take advantage of these outside scholarships. Second category, college aid. This is the money that comes from the schools. So students and parents, pay attention to the ACT score and GPA and those requirements at those schools. Federal financial aid is the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. Application opens October 1st of every year, and you have to renew that application each year. Very special rules on whose tax information to use. So be sure that you're paying attention to those rules and asking questions if you are unsure about whose info to use. And then lastly, the state of Mississippi has 3 grants, MTAG, MESG, and the HELP grant. And so it's really important that students know these options. And when you're thinking about the grand scheme of it and how expensive college can be, if you understand these 4 types of financial aid, if you plan ahead, if you understand your school options and understand the types of financial aid available, it does not have to be such a scary, daunting task. So lastly, again, my name is TJ Walker. I work for the North Mississippi Get to College Center. We're a nonprofit organization. We assist students and parents all over the state of Mississippi with college planning. We have ACT workshops. We meet one-on-one with students in our offices when we're open, but of course, because of the pandemic, we're working virtually. So if you needed anything, my email address is simply tjwalker@gettocollege.org, or you can call our office at 662-349-2789. Because we're working remotely, all of our calls are being forwarded to our cell phones. So we're available to help you. You have great organizations in your communities available to help you, like Project Impact Mississippi. So please take advantage of all these resources, because we're all working together collectively to assist students and help y'all reach your life goals. Thanks.